Viviano left home. Today was going to be a very important day. He had been working for 2 years in a construction company, and today he had to undergo a kind of examination to be promoted to a better position. The bosses had arrived from the capital to retire the old branch director and appoint a new one. There were 3 candidates for the position. They had all prepared judiciously. Each one had to present a development plan for the company. Viviano had worked on his for almost a month. He was sure his plan was the best. He loved his job. Viviano had read a lot since he was a child. That was when he decided he wanted to be a builder. And he was sure he would do high-quality work. Not like those who were building the new building on his block. Children often played at this construction site. One day, a slab wobbled under Viviano's feet. He screamed trying to hold on, but he couldn't. He fell from a height of 3 meters. Debris had been poured below, and there were large chunks of concrete at the bottom. He fell precisely on them. At first, he didn't even lose consciousness. It didn't hurt either. Then came the fear, because he tried to get up, and that was when a sharp pain pierced his body. His friends were already running towards the site with the adults. 6 months in the hospital. 3 surgeries. Viviano barely understood what was happening around him. He just begged his mom to take him home. "Mama, please, I can't take it anymore. Take me home." All she could do was cry and kiss him. Sometimes Dad appeared. He sat next to his bed, held his hand in silence. After 6 months, they allowed him to go home to spend 3 months there. But only temporarily. Viviano was old enough to understand it. He was 10 years old at the time. One morning, when his parents thought he was asleep, Viviano heard them talking in the kitchen. He couldn't get up, but his mom always left the door open to hear if her son suddenly called her. "Ricardo, what are we going to do? He's getting surgery in a month and we don't have the money to pay for it." "Diana, then what do you suggest? Sell a kidney? Go ahead, find a buyer, I'll sell it. But you know it shouldn't be like that. We'll have to think of something else. Diana, we have to reschedule the surgery, that's all." "Are you crazy? You heard what the doctor said. Every month the chances reduce." There was a noise in the kitchen, as if Dad had suddenly gotten up from his chair. "Diana, I'm doing everything I can. We've already spent all the money. Every last penny, do you understand? And the money we saved for the car, and the money we saved for repairs. Everything, do you understand? But no, you demand that I do more." "I'm not demanding anything from you, Ricardo. It's just that I feel like you don't care. Do you realize that our son may never walk again?" "Yes, I realize. And what about you? What did you do to help him recover? Your accountant's salary is nothing." "But, Ricardo." The front door slammed shut. It meant that the father had already left. Viviano heard his mother's footsteps approaching his room. He closed his eyes tightly, pretending to be asleep. With closed eyes, tears wouldn't come out. Every day the boy waited to be taken to the hospital. But as time passed, Viviano realized that his parents hadn't found the money and that he would be condemned to stay in bed forever. He tried to distract himself. He read a lot. So much that his eyes got tired and his head hurt. At least the boy managed to fall asleep quickly. And then something happened that divided his life into 2 parts, before the betrayal and after. His mother, his mommy, the person he loved the most in the world, abandoned him. It all happened in the early morning. His mom entered his room dressed to go out. She placed a small travel bag on the floor and sat on the edge of his bed. "How are you, son?" He put his book aside. "Like always." "Where are you going?" "Son, I have to go. I came to say goodbye. I want you to know that I love you very much. I love you more than my life. You're going to be okay. I promise you." Diana gave him a quick kiss and hurried out. At first, Viviano didn't understand that she wasn't leaving for just one day, but that his mom had to leave forever. She just abandoned him. Dad was by his side. He calmed him down, supported him. And a week later, he got the money for the surgery. When Viviano could finally take his first step, he decided for himself that he no longer had a mother. He had a father who had become everything to him. After almost a year of rehabilitation, Viviano was finally able to return to school. Dad again, managed to arrange for him to take express exams from the previous year. Viviano had studied hard, so he was able to return to his class. Some time passed and Dad brought Claudia home. Viviano didn't like her, but he was always very polite to her. How could he get angry with his father or tell him what to do? He approached his car. He stopped for a moment. It had only been 15 days since he bought the car, and he hadn't gotten tired of admiring it yet. As he got into the car, he saw a young woman on the sidewalk, staring at him. At first, Viviano thought she was someone he knew, but when he looked closer, he ruled that out. What she was wearing had long gone out of fashion. So, no, she wasn't someone he knew. The car drove off and the girl took a photo out of her pocket. The photo was of Viviano when he was very young. She sighed satisfied, grabbed her bag, and left the block. She would definitely come back, but at night when Viviano returned from work. Viviano returned very excited. Everything had turned out exactly as he had planned. From this day on, he was the director of the branch. Few had achieved it at the age of 29. He parked the car and opened the trunk. He took out a cake and some bottles of champagne. He called his father from the office and told him to set the table. However, he heard Claudia say, "He could have taken us to a restaurant." But he didn't want to be in a bad mood. He could have gone to a restaurant, but he wanted to be at home, with his father who had been by his side, who had spared no effort to get him back on his feet, to help him recover. Viviano? He turned around. In front of him was the same girl from the morning. Up close, she was quite pretty. Blue eyes, blonde ponytail. Maybe they knew each other? He thought of all the options, but nothing seemed right. Then he gave up. Yes. Do we know each other? No, we don't know each other, thank God. But I need to talk to you. Viviano raised an eyebrow. The girl was clearly hostile. Damn, maybe he had met her at Alberto's country house, his colleague? They had spent a weekend partying, and to be honest, Viviano didn't remember half of it. Well, let's talk. I can give you 5 minutes. I don't need that much time. This is the address where your mother is. She's very sick. If you don't want to help her, at least go visit her. You may not see her again. Viviano jerked his hand back, which he had mechanically taken the piece of paper with at first. I don't have a mother. The girl looked straight into his eyes. You're mistaken. You do have one. And no matter how hard you try to hide from it, it's not going anywhere. Fine, so be it. I don't want to see her. Take her address. And remember that not everything in life is exactly how we believe it to be. Goodbye. She handed him a piece of paper and walked away quickly. The night was ruined. He didn't know why he hadn't told his father. Probably, he didn't want to ruin his night too. His father didn't deserve it. 2 days passed, and Viviano couldn't stop thinking about the address in his pocket. On Saturday, after another night of uncertainty, he finally decided to go and just look into the eyes of the one who had left him in such a state. The search took him a long time. He wandered through the streets of a rundown neighborhood, full of dilapidated buildings, without finding what he was looking for. Then he saw her, the girl from the morning. He stopped. Excuse me, what's your name? The girl turned around, surprised, and smiled. Have you come after all? I have. I just want to look into your eyes. Can you show me where this damn house is? It's right behind you. Viviano turned around and cursed. There was even a sign on the building, which he had stubbornly ignored. The young man climbed up to the second floor on the old, creaky stairs. He raised his hand to ring the doorbell and then lowered it. Mom. He couldn't remember anything bad about her. Only how she had loved him, how she had cried next to his bed, how she had stroked his arm while he pretended to sleep. He had to regain his composure. Behind the door was the same woman who had abandoned him out of fear of difficulties. Dad said he had persuaded her to stay, promised to find money, but Mom wouldn't listen to anyone. Apparently, she had someone more important than her son. The doorbell rang unexpectedly loud. Viviano noticed that the door was slightly ajar. He entered and immediately heard a voice. Emilia, is that you? It was his mom's voice. Viviano took a step forward and entered. No, it's not Emilia. The woman lying on the couch moaned. My son. Viviano. Yes, it's me. The woman tried to get up but couldn't. Viviano stood in front of her and couldn't overcome his feelings. He didn't want to help her. He didn't want to touch her. Diana must have realized it. Son, sit down, there's a chair over there. Viviano sat down and looked around. Misery stared at him from all corners. Terrible, total misery. Everything seemed clean, yet it felt like he was in a den. A woman cursed loudly on the street. Viviano's mother smiled slightly, the neighbors and their commotion. It's normal here. How are you, son? Viviano sarcastically smiled. Don't you think it's a little late to ask me that? I'm sorry. She fell silent. He felt his mother's gaze on him. Then he noticed a picture of himself as a child on the table next to the couch. It's incredible, what a hypocrite. Now he finally understood. Apparently, that guy had left her a long time ago. Maybe for no reason, or maybe because she was sick. Somehow, she found out that Viviano was doing well in life and decided to ask him for money. Of course. This explains everything. Why did you look for me? What do you want? Money? Then stop acting and pretending. Get up, why don't you at least offer me a coffee? Diana tried to get up again. She even managed to put her feet on the floor, but didn't have the strength to do more. She cried quietly, I'm sorry, son. I can't get up. The door opened and Emilia entered the room. She hurried over to Viviano's mother, Donna Diana. Are you crazy? They told you not to get up. The girl laid Diana back down and turned to Viviano. What were you doing? Why did you let her do that? Oh, come on. Should I have put her back down? I figured out her plan. She didn't have to create all this drama. She could have just asked for the money and that would be it. What? Emilia narrowed her eyes and approached him. Money? She'll never be able to pay back that money. Calm down. Who needs it? Emilia, please, he doesn't know anything. Diana cried inconsolably. Emilia crossed her arms, and it's very convenient not to know anything. If you don't know, you sleep better, right, Viviano? Do you have a good life? Then get out of here. Your mother saw you and that's enough. But you guys. Get out of here. A sigh was heard from the sofa where Diana was lying. Emilia turned sharply, rushed over to Diana and shouted at Viviano, call an ambulance. Call an ambulance. She has heart problems. Viviano typed something on his phone and didn't understand anything. Had she really called him just to see him before she died? Probably to ask for forgiveness? And this crazy girl wouldn't let her. The ambulance took Diana and he followed. He made sure his mother received all the help she needed and then asked the doctor, when can I visit her? Tomorrow afternoon. Make sure to come. The prognosis is reserved. Viviano left the hospital. He soon saw Amelia sobbing on a bench near the entrance. He approached and sat next to her. "Why are you crying?" "The doctor said you could visit her tomorrow." She looked at him with her huge, wet eyes. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." "Do you want me to take you home?" "Well, if you can." Viviano left the hospital parking lot. He would have to come back tomorrow to give his mother the opportunity to apologize and calm down. But if she hopes to establish a relationship, she won't succeed. They arrived at the familiar buildings. "Which one do you live in?" Amelia, who had been silent the whole way, said, "I live in the same building as Donna Diana, just in a different entrance." "So, you're neighbors?" She looked at him with surprise and then smiled. "Is that strange to you?" Viviano felt embarrassed. "No, of course not, it's just that." "Are you going to see your mother tomorrow?" "Yes, I promised the doctor I would come." "At what time, if I may ask?" Viviano felt satisfied. Was she in love with him? Well, she dresses modestly, but has a good body and face. She has it all. "Around 3 in the afternoon." "Okay, I'll come later." "I don't think you'll be there for long." "Why later?" Viviano thought he had misunderstood something. Amelia had already gotten out of the car, but before closing the door she said, "So I won't bump into you." The door slammed shut. Viviano stared at it for a while longer. Finally, he shook his head. Amelia was no longer in sight. She must have entered the building. Viviano hit the steering wheel with his hands. "This is ridiculous. What does she think she's doing? Who does she think she is? A regular Mother Teresa." He drove home at full speed. Anger boiled in his chest. How could it be possible? His mother had abandoned him when he was sick. She didn't want to take on the responsibility of taking care of him, and now, with the help of that little grump, she was trying to make him feel guilty about something. No way. He's not a fool. They can all go to hell. He won't even go to the hospital tomorrow. Let them clean up their own mess. Viviano was so angry that he didn't see the red light. A screech of brakes, a crash, and darkness. He had difficulty waking up. Or rather, he wasn't sleeping, but he still couldn't wake up. Nothing hurt him. There was a void around him, but he knew he could hear everything. Why couldn't he wake up? He could barely hear someone's footsteps, very light. "Hello." "Oh, it's the little grump." Yes, it was her, Amelia. He made an incredible effort to open his eyes. Amelia, and it was her, disappeared immediately, and a second later the doctor's face appeared. "What's your name?" "Viviano." "Last name?" "Diaz Moreno." "How old are you?" 29. "Perfect." The doctor shone a flashlight into Viviano's eyes, causing him to immediately close his eyes. "Very good. Rest now." The man disappeared and Amelia appeared. "I won't be long. Your family just left. Your stepmother is such an unpleasant woman." "Ush. How did you live with her?" "She was everywhere trying to get a document that would say you wouldn't be disabled after the accident. Your father tried to calm her down, but she was screaming like crazy, 'I'm going to ask for a divorce. I won't live with your disabled son under the same roof.' It doesn't surprise me. I'm even starting to get used to it." "To what?" "Whenever something happens to me, everyone abandons me." "You're talking about your mother, right?" Amelia's eyes flashed with lightning. She gasped, but continued. "You shouldn't speak like that. Although, who am I telling this to? I thought you had hit your head so hard that it would knock some sense into you, but no. It's still where it was. You know, I thought better of you at first. I mean, I expected you to at least try to find out the truth to know who was responsible. But you. Amelia couldn't find the right word. Well, get well soon. The girl headed towards the door. Viviano looked at her and closed his eyes. He had never imagined that there were people capable of making him lose his temper in 2 minutes. And that despite being in poor condition, full of medication. What a brat. What is she always talking about? What truth? What is it that he doesn't know that should make him change his mind about the world? His head was hurting. Now he wanted to know the terrible secret that Amelia always talked about. On the other hand, she could have told him herself. But no, she made a big drama and ran away. Too bad for her husband, if she has one. The doctor came to see him at night. How are you feeling? Well, I'm fine. Well, what can I say? It's not that bad. You can sit up. Get up slowly. You hit your forehead, but luckily, you have a strong forehead. Viviano immediately sat up. He felt dizzy, but it was bearable. Doctor, tell me. Yesterday a woman was admitted. Diana. Probably Moreno, but it could be another surname. How can I find her? The doctor slapped his forehead. Oh, and I wonder where I remember it from. Weren't you the one who came with her? It was me. I treated her. She's in room 7. The opposite wing of this one. I have to see her. No, that's out of the question. You can't go that far yet. We'll monitor you for 1 or 2 days and then you can move freely. The doctor left. Viviano waited another half hour. The hospital was already quiet. He walked slowly to the door and looked outside. There was no one in the hallway. Only cheerful voices could be heard coming from the nurse's office. Apparently, the girls were chatting. Viviano leaned on the wall and walked to the door of the wing, opened it and walked out into the hallway. He stopped for a moment and headed to the door in front of him. There was no one in the hallway either. The timing was very opportune. The patients had eaten, gone to bed, and now the staff could eat and rest too. Room 7 was right in front of him. There was no time to think. He pulled the door towards him. His eyes took a while to adjust to the darkness. When they did, he could see his mother well. She was lying next to the window. The 2 beds were empty, and a woman was sleeping at the other end. Viviano. She must have felt him. Scared, she looked at the bandage on his head. What happened to you, son? Nothing important. I hit my forehead. Do you know why I'm here? She shook her head negatively. You have to tell me why you left me. I thought it didn't matter to me, but now I realize I'd like to know. I want to understand who got in your way so that you decided to leave a sick child. Diana was silent for a minute and then replied, I didn't leave you, Viviano. It's just that I had no other choice. Lies. I remember you came to say goodbye to me. Nobody forced you to leave. You made that decision on your own. Isn't that right? Of course it is. I did it. Nobody forced me. Well, just tell me why and I'll go. Frankly, Viviano felt disappointed. Only now did he realize that he had allowed himself to think that he could forgive her after she told him her story. Well, not entirely, but a little. He wanted to help her. With the treatment, maybe in something else, but how could he help a person who had done that to him? The reason was you. I understand. A sick child is a burden. But you had to go somewhere, right? Okay, I'll tell you everything. But it's a long story. I'm not in a hurry. Diana sighed and closed her eyes. Your surgery was postponed once again. I realized that the chances were becoming increasingly slim. There was no money. No money at all. I tried to apply for a loan, mortgaged my apartment, but everywhere they offered so little money that the amount didn't even cover half of the expenses. 3 months after you were discharged, I started to notice that your father smelled like another woman's perfume, had lipstick stains on his shirt. And that's when I realized that Ricardo wasn't going to help. He had withdrawn from everything. He had his own life, separate from us. I had to do something. As soon as possible. Viviano looked at his mother in total confusion. She was saying strange things. Dad had always been by their side. He had found the damn money. True, Viviano never asked where from. Besides, he remembered well, after the surgery, they somehow got a better life. Dad started his small business. Yes, he was never at home, but Viviano, though not fully an adult, was very aware that his father had to work hard. Diana continued, one day, exhausted from pleading with the banks, I sat in a park and cried. Then someone called my name. I looked up and saw my friend. Things had been so hectic due to recent events that we hadn't seen each other in almost a year. She sat down beside me. We talked. She was very upset with your father. She was so outraged. She said goodbye with these words, I'll think about it too, and if I come up with anything, I'll call you right away. I don't know if you can call it luck, but just 2 days later, the daughter of her boss ran over a man and killed him. She ran away from the scene. Claudia, upon seeing that the boss was worried, asked if something had happened. They had a good relationship, and she told her everything. Together, they found a way to solve the problem. She called me at night and told me that her boss was willing to pay me twice the amount I needed for the surgery. I had an hour to think about it. Your dad wasn't at home. Claudia said I could spend the rest of the money on the best lawyer I could get to reduce the sentence. Yes, she offered to go to jail instead of her daughter. I accepted. I knew I wouldn't see you for a long time, but you could run like before. Dad didn't show up until morning. I told him everything. He supported me. He said he would make sure I received the smallest possible sentence. Your father couldn't come to court because he was in the hospital with you. Claudia didn't come either. But I was sure that you would receive help and I thought I would appeal my case later. I was sentenced to 9 years. I don't know why so many. Apparently, there were aggravating circumstances, or maybe the man who died was someone important. As you can imagine, there was no appeal of the case. There were no lawyers, nothing. And I couldn't tell the truth. It would have made things worse. The money was paid and you were operated on. That woman kept her promise. I was released on parole after 7 years, went straight to our house. I was so eager to see you. But it was Claudia who opened the door for me. It can't be. Her? Claudia. It was her? Unfortunately, yes. She insisted on keeping things as they were. She was the one our father used to go see at night. I don't blame him. Not everyone can handle what we had at home back then. A puzzle formed in Viviano's mind. Money, a better life. Claudia. Everything was so simple. Except he had always thought it was even simpler. I left. Claudia explained to me that you hated me and your father loved her. That you were a family in me. No one else wanted me. I rented this place in a cheap neighborhood. They don't charge me much. I got a job in the factory. I often came to our building, then to your university. I looked at you sideways. I cried. I admired you. You have become a very handsome, smart man. I am very proud of you. I would never have stood in your way. But Emilia. Once I put my foot in my mouth and told her everything. And Emilia was burning with indignation all the time. And when I got sick, she decided to find you. I was against it. But she is stubborn. Yes, that's true. Viviano was silent for a while, digesting the information, getting used to it. Why didn't you come to me before? Why didn't you tell me everything? Well, if I hadn't listened, you would have written a letter. But Diana remained silent. Viviano said with difficulty, Mom, can you hear me? Silence again. Viviano rushed to the bed. Diana's arm hung without strength. Her cheeks were wet with tears, her eyes closed. and her lips were white, even with a bluish tint. Mama. He touched her, and her other hand also fell like a rag. Viviano grabbed his mother by the shoulders. Mama. Mama. Not now. Please. He shook her and shouted. Tears streamed from his eyes, Diana's head swaying on the pillow. Mama. Someone pulled him away from the bed, then he felt a prick on his shoulder, and darkness. He didn't want it, he wanted to be there, with his mother. He woke up in his hospital room. His father was sitting by his side. Viviano looked at him and simply didn't understand how he could continue living his life. Why couldn't he live without hating someone? He had hated his mother so much, and now he had to hate his father too? Dad? Ricardo woke up, opening his eyes. Son. Dad, is it all true? Everything that Mom told me? Ricardo looked his son in the eyes. Yes, Viviano, it's all true. I'm sorry, it just happened that way. I understand, you probably don't want to see me. And, you know, it's the right thing. I bought a ticket to go to my sister's. Her husband died and it's hard for her to raise 2 kids alone. I'm going to live there. I left everything for you. You'll find the papers at home. Claudia has gone with someone luckier. Goodbye, son. And forgive me if you can. The father headed towards the door. It was as if he expected Viviano to call him. He hoped for it a lot, but Viviano didn't. Son, why are you so nervous? It's your wedding day. You're acting like a child. Diana looked at her son with a smile as he fidgeted with his tie and bow tie. Diana had returned from Germany 2 months ago after undergoing a complicated heart surgery. To pay for it, Viviano sold his father's business as soon as he found out the surgery was possible. Diana had tried to dissuade him, but Viviano was firm. That money is already yours. It was hard to recognize Diana. She looked as if she had lost 20 years. Mom, how can I not be nervous? It's like you don't know Emilia. She can change her mind 18 times and run away, Viviano said. Diana laughed. She won't change her mind, she loves you. Mom, really? Do you really think so? Viviano sat next to his mother on the couch, and she hugged him. Of course, I do. I think she fell in love with you the first time she saw you. But don't give me away, or I'll get in trouble. They laughed. Well, now they have a family and even family secrets.